Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to dive on in for a first look at Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Sea of Claws from my friends over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment. This 160-page hardcover is available now, carries an MSRP of $39.99, which will include the PDF if you order from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. But if you only want the PDF alone, you can go grab that over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. Without further ado, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Sea of Claws. Before I dive in, do want to point out the fine folks over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. These days, it's important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of Sea of Claws, but I do want to give you a very good feel for what's in this book. And I'm really excited to take a peek at this, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But first of all, let's take a look at the back here. To the north lies the bitterly cold and tempestuous Sea of Claws. The sea separates the empire from the lands of Norska, where marauder tribes beseech the forces of chaos for glory and power, and vast monsters make their lairs in the fjords. The coastal provinces of the empire, desperate to escape the stronghold of Mirenberg, scramble to construct mighty navies and sea defenses. Sailors, explorers, pirates, and wreckers all rub their hands in thought of the wealth to be won. But whilst the life on the ocean waves can reap great rewards, the risks are greater still. Sea of Claws is a guide to adventuring on the seas of the old world. It talks about what we've got inside the book, but we're going to take a look inside, so I don't need to read that. So it looks like we're going to open up with a bit of a map, and this is showing the Sea of Claws. Of course, we've got quite a few authors as well as illustrators, so let's make sure we give them the credit due. Now, I don't believe there are any adventures in this book. I think this is more of a player and game master facing release. So I'm just taking a peek here. It doesn't look like we've got any adventures. We've got the bestiary. Looks like we've got some information about different areas that surround the Sea of Claws. Looks like we've got new seafaring rules. But no, I don't see any adventures. So if you're a player hoping that your game master is going to pick up Sea of Claws, or maybe they already have picked it up, you don't have to tune out. There's no adventures. We're not going to be spoiling anything. So here we've got an introduction. Sea of Claws is intended to give players and GMs of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay the tools they need to take their games onto the world's oceans. So there we have it. Right there, it's telling us this is both for players and game masters. The Sea of Claws, the stretch of water that separates the lands of Bretonia and the Empire from those of Norska, is detailed as an example ocean to which these rules can be applied. This book is not a region guide, but does concentrate on the Sea of Claws in order to show how rules for seafaring apply to the stretch of ocean that is easily accessible to the navies of the Empire, the area familiar to most players of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Cool. So it looks like we've got a bit of a timeline. Then I think it appears that we've got a stretch where it's going to be discussing areas that surround the Sea of Claws. Do see that we have some adventure hooks in the book. So rather than, as I mentioned, I didn't see anything that's indicating there's any adventures, like full-length adventures in this. There are adventure hooks. So as it pointed out, this is not a region guide, but it looks like we've got a bit of a gazetteer approach to at least the areas around the Sea of Claws. So we have elves upon the Sea of Claws. Sea of Claws is not known as an area of great interest to the elves, though they are active there. Okay. Get a bit of history. I think this is it looks like the Imperial Navy. We're getting a bit of info about that. So I'm excited to see what this latest wave of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay releases are going to hold. Because now that the excellent director's cut of the Enemy Within campaign has wrapped up, I personally think it's going to kind of allow Cubicle 7 Entertainment to spread its wings, because while those 5 volumes were being published, we had a lot of focus of the other supplements that came out, not completely, but a good amount of focus on the area of the old world where that campaign was taking place. Now, recently, we've gotten the city guide for Solzamund, and then now we've got the Sea of Claws, and then out in PDF right now is Lustria. It's not out in hardcover just yet, but that happens to be a land which is across the sea. So we are going to start to see some adventures and things taking place in areas that we may not, as fans of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay or players or game masters, we might not be overly familiar with. So I'm pretty excited to see what we're going to end up with. Now, last time I had talked with Dominic McDowell over at Cubicle 7 Entertainment, he was discussing that there was going to be another campaign, an original campaign, which I believe is going to be 3 chapters. So it's not going to be as long as The Enemy Within, but it's still going to be relatively epic. I'm pretty excited to learn more about that. Now, I haven't heard anything about that campaign since I talked to Dom at last year's Gen Con. So I'm hoping that it's actually still kind of in the pipeline. So it looks like we're going to get a new class. It's a Seafarer class, which is going to bring us new careers. And it looks like we've got 8 new careers, as well as some new talents, such as the Shanty and the Master and Commander. Let's see what we've got. We've got the Beachcomber. Beachcombers live by their wits upon the littoral, finding most of what they need to survive through Manon's providence. The bounty of the beach. So there's the career path there, and that's for halflings and humans. I know my mug is kind of blocking that off. We've got the Chantyman, high elf or human. Any sailor worth their salt performs better to the sound of a chantyman or shantyman. Some say they're just singers and musicians like any others. However, it is a common belief amongst most ships' crews that the best shantyman can have an unnatural effect upon the crew. Now we get a list of some shanties here. We've got the Huffer, which can be a dwarf, halfling, high elf, or human. Huffers are known to work on the rivers of the Empire, but pilots and navigators are obviously even more invaluable to captains of ocean-going vessels. Not only is knowledge of areas of rock, reef, or sandbank necessary, but seafarers often sail beyond sight of any landmark, so navigators at sea must display practical knowledge of how to pinpoint their location from the position of the sun and the stars. Then we get the officer, dwarf, high elf, or human. Ship's officers, especially captains, are judge, jury, and executioner aboard their vessel. They have the men given power of life and death over the crew, but this is a double-edged sword. The officer must also inspire the crew to trust their judgment and competence, or the hands might mutiny. We've got sailors, which could be dwarf, halfling, high elf, or human. Humans of the old world had to learn the skills of sailing for themselves, for the dwarves were never a great maritime civilization, and the elves had no desire to encourage human exploration of the wider world. Human civilization before the age of Sigmar rarely ventured upon the waves. Even the mighty Kemrians built few vessels capable of ocean travel. Talking about different kinds of sailors. Then we have the sailor priest of Manon. Priests of Manon are found working and ministering on board vessels as often as they are found in his temples and shrines. Manon is a fickle and moody deity, but he seems to respect a degree of practical ability and experience of the seas in his priests, and most of them spend a part of their career at sea. I like the artwork throughout. Very nice. Ship's gunner, dwarf, halfling, high elf, human. The ship's gunner is part of the crew, just like any other crew member. They are expected to help with the sailing of their vessel and to put their hand to anything involved in running the ship. In addition, they are experts on black powder weapons and their use at sea. We have powder monkeys, ship's gunners, gunnery captains, and master gunners. So powder monkey's role is to fetch black powder from the powder store deep within the ship's hold and bring it to their gun. Then we got the wrecker, dwarf, human, or wood elf. Well, that's interesting. We got the wood elf in there. Bands of wreckers work around the coasts of all the nations of the old world. They live by salvaging cargoes from stricken vessels. Although there are some wreckers who live by treacherous lengths of coastline and wait patiently for ships to run aground, they may even manage to keep on the right side of the law as they do so, informing the authorities of their actions, but seeking a cut of the salvage. But such people are not archetypical wreckers. The enterprise of wrecking is usually an opportunistic and criminal one, and the name is associated with those who take an active role in ensuring a steady supply of ships to wreck and plunder. All right, so those are our new careers. Then we've got the Cult of Manon. So we've got a few pages devoted to that. The Cult of Stromfels. Stromfels is the shark god, the predator who deals death from the depths, and he is the wrecker, the wrath of the sea. An obscure and outlawed god, his small cults of worshippers remain hidden from civilized society on pain of execution. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to get into boats and boat building. We've got some example boats. Discussion of building a boat, traits of boats, upgrades you can add, such as a crow's nest or figurehead, gun ports, a ram, artillery pieces, and how cannon are placed. Cool. So we are going to have a whole slew of seagoing rules. So we're going to have combat rules, no doubt, navigation, chasing and racing, environmental hazards at sea, damaging boats, critical hits. Oh, that's kind of cool. Critical hits on cargo, rigging, hull. So, as an example, critical wounds on the hull. We've got shattered rudder, ruined keel, oars, fixtures, rules for sailing larger vessels, managing the performance and morale of large crews and bigger boats. Hirelings, so we have some sample hirelings, landsmen, sailors, seasoned mercenaries, huffers, doctors, Some rules for extended voyages. Wow. This is pretty detailed here. So if you've got any interest as a game master in running some seaborne adventures, this is certainly a supplement you're going to want to pick up. Or even if you want to kind of focus your adventures on a port city and have your player characters be involved with a ship's crew. This looks like an excellent addition to your collection. Now we've got our bestiary. I think this is what wraps up the book. We've got some new traits. So we've got Grim and a marine creature. Not even going to try to pronounce this. We have the Siren or Sirene right here. Tales tell of the Sirens whose call lures sailors to their deaths on the rocks. They are said to be a form of banshee that haunts the seas. When a witch is drowned, it is said that her soul persists as an anguished shade. The souls of witches reliably take on such ghostly shapes because they fear punishments that await them in the realm of mort. Or it may be that they are so infused with Dar that they return as specters. So it looks like we also have merfolk. Oh, no, maybe not. This is a merworm. Oh, so kind of a sea dragon, I guess. The Orb Leviathan and Black Leviathan. I think the Black Leviathan is supposed to be massive. Triton. No creature in the world excites quite as much legend as speculation as Triton. Despite the fascination he excites in mariners, scholars, wizards, and priests alike, there is little that can be said about his nature that does not elicit fiery controversy. Aha. So is he a creature? He's not a deity, I guess. It says he is rarely seen, but is reported to range throughout the seas of the world. So he is an individual. And it looks like we get some NPCs, maybe some famed mariners here. Captain Diego Roth. Wolfric, champion of the Sarl. Arch Sea Lord Vrisk Iron Scratch. Looks like he's a Skaven. Yes, Clan Scurvy. Nice. Then we get an index and we get a template for our ships. And that will wrap up. Speaking of the enemy within, here are the 5 volumes plus their companions. So that wraps up Sea of Claws for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Of course, I will have a review of Sea of Claws in the very near future. Sweet. All right. That is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. Because not only will it let you know when I upload videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch this video. And until I see you next time, here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.